I have another batch of 4 fantastic soups that you can make all at one time to put on your shelf. This is going to be soup sampler number 2. If you missed soup sampler number 1, it was all about the beef and chicken. I'll put a link to that up above. This one is, it's all about the beans. So any of these, while they're not vegetarian the way I'm making them, any of these can be made vegetarian, and we'll talk about that as we go through. So I'm excited to show you what we've got today. Welcome to Grow and Preserve. I'm Carter, and I'm so glad you're here today. Just like last time, I took some footage while I was doing the taste testing so you can see exactly how it looks coming out of the jar. I think that's really important. So let's start off with the first one we're making. This is Italian sausage and white bean soup. I'm going to put up some footage of it coming out of the jar. This is actually a recipe that I found online for not canning, just for making a batch of soup. So I did have to do a little bit of rejiggering on it. I'll put the link to the original recipe down below, and then I'll write my canning instructions down below as well. This one is just, it's killer. This is my personal favorite in this batch of soups. I think they're all good or they wouldn't be here, but this is my personal favorite. I'll tell you which one is David's personal favorite in a bit. But this one has sausage and bacon and white beans and spinach and carrots and onions and seasonings. It's delicious, absolutely delicious. So we're gonna make that one today. Next up, people sometimes ask where I find my inspiration for recipes. Well, sometimes it's the grocery store. So Progresso, I'll put a picture of the jar up here. They have a soup called Southwestern style black bean soup. So you turn it over and you look at the ingredients, and there's some things in there that I really don't want. And I'm guessing, I have not tried that soup, but I'm guessing it's maybe not quite as hearty as the one that we made today. But I took that and made my own soup out of the good ingredients, the healthy ingredients that I wanted from the back of that jar of soup. And it is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So the next one, moving on, and I will tell you, neither David nor I like lentils, and we both really like this next soup. It was really quite a surprise to us. This is Mediterranean style lentil soup. This is another Progresso copycat recipe. Let's say copycat and improved recipe. Let's put it that way. This one is absolutely delicious. The flavors in this are fantastic. The colors in this are fantastic. So I'm excited to show you that one today. And then the last one is an old standby. There are plenty of folks out there doing split pea and ham soup. Today, I'll show you how to do it as part of this 4-pack. But I have to tell you, I've been married to my husband for 16 years, and I just recently learned that this is his favorite soup of all time. I had no idea that split pea was #1 for him. But anyway, so now he has a well-stocked pantry with some split pea soup. This one, there are many recipes out there, and they're all really based on the official recipe. And they all say, even the official recipe says that this is a very, very thick soup and may need to be watered down a bit when you go to serve it. And I found that to be the case. I just added 2 or 3 tablespoons of water. And when we taste tested all of these, I just microwaved the soups, poured them into a bowl, microwaved the soups, so we could kind of simulate what was going to happen at the office, right? You're not adding in seasonings or anything like that. You're not cooking it on low for another 20 minutes to reduce the liquid or anything like that. So you will see, this is, it is thick. It is very thick coming out, but add a little bit of water, which I feel you can easily do at the office, and then we're good to go. But I will make one comment about this one, which is an aside comment, and that is, everybody talks about how thick this soup is in the jar. It is thicker than any pumpkin puree I've done, any butternut squash soup I've ever seen. So I don't know how this is okay, officially government approved, okay, and yet pumpkin puree and butternut squash soup, that kind of stuff, is not. So it's just one more thing where common sense needs to prevail sometimes. So that's my little spiel there. We're going to get on with making these soups now. We're going to jump right into the first one. We're going to start with the Italian sausage and white bean. All right, let's start with the Italian sausage and white bean soup. I'm going to put all the beans in the bottom of the jar because I want to make sure that they always have plenty of liquid. So we're going to start with the beans on this one. We need a 1/4 cup of white beans. In each of these 2 jars. To make this a little easier on my kitchen cleaning up this morning, I actually took care of cooking the sausage and the bacon yesterday. But that's all you really need to pre-cook. And we only need 2 strips of bacon total and a cup of sausage total. Okay, so my beans are in. I'm going to move on to the sausage. So I'm going to need 1/2 cup of sausage. I'm going to need a spoon to get it out. So this is just Italian sausage. I think it may be a hot Italian sausage. That's kind of personal preference. I can see the red pepper flakes in here. That's personal preference. Use regular Italian sausage, use plain sausage, and doctor it up, however you like it. So it may have garlic in it, may have Italian seasoning in it may have some red pepper flakes. All of that is good. So if you decide not to use seasoned sausage, you might want to adjust the seasonings we're going to add to the jar just a little bit because the recipe was written for Italian sausage. All right, let's get 1/2 cup in here. Really pack this into this jar. Now this would be about 1/2 pound total, maybe just a little shy of 1/2 pound total of sausage that you'll need. So plan on either freezing the second 1/2 pound, either cooked up and crumbled already or just, raw and ready for whatever next recipe you have. Or go ahead and work it into an omelet or a quiche or spaghetti sauce or something like that. All right, 1/2 cup of sausage in each jar. So if you wanted to turn this into vegetarian, clearly we leave out the sausage and the bacon coming up next. But I would add 2 more tablespoons of the white beans and then just fill the rest with broth. And that should completely fix it. You might want to add some more seasonings because you're not having the seasonings coming from the Italian sausage. All right, so I'm going to put the equivalent of 1 strip of bacon in each of these. There. All right, you want to put a little bit more bacon in there. That's not going to be a big deal. It's good though. All right, move on to carrots. We're going to do a 1/4 cup of carrots in each of these 2 jars. I really packed these things in last night. I wanted to have all my prep work done. So first thing this morning, I could get this out for you. All right, so that was a 1/4 cup of carrots in each of these. Again, the recipe's down below. And the rest of these carrots go into the split pea with ham. All right, let's do some spinach. We need a 1/4 cup. And I just kind of hold it in there. I don't really pack it too tight, right? we're gonna get the seasonings in here. Now with the seasoned sausage, I'm gonna add enough seasoning to season the beans and the broth and everything else, okay? So I'm gonna do half a teaspoon of garlic powder in each of these jars. I'm gonna do a quarter teaspoon of salt, quarter teaspoon of pepper, and a quarter teaspoon of Italian seasoning in each of these jars as well. Tell you my broth story on these. This whole time I've been using, in all my testings, I've been using chicken broth on these and ham broth on the others because I had it, right? And I don't use ham broth very often, and I thought, well, okay, what better place to use it? Well, now I'm out of ham broth. And I didn't have any more chicken broth upstairs, so I had turkey broth upstairs. So today I'm using turkey broth. If you'd rather use vegetable stock, that's fine too. Any stock that you like. I don't know that beef stock really works terribly well with any of these, but chicken, turkey, ham, vegetable, I don't know, maybe there's something else out there on your shelf that might work great. I think an onion broth, I do have that downstairs too. I think that is too strong for this. So you pick your broth. I think chicken generally works well with just about anything. I'm gonna see how turkey works today. All right, so I will add the broth at the end, but this doesn't have onions in it yet. Okay, now I'm gonna put the onions in here, 1/4 cup of onions. I almost missed those. Don't worry about the headspace until we start squishing things down. It'll be fine. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the Southwest style black beans next. These were really tasty, really tasty. I don't know how the Progresso version tastes, so if you've tried that, let me know. And if you've tried that and you make this, I definitely want to know about it. Make sure I got it right and better. All right, let's move on to black beans. All right, we're going to start with 1/3 of a cup of black beans. I don't do a hefty third, I just do a third. And they soak up at least 2 or 3 times their volume, and by the time they soak up the water, about 2 or 3 times. So you do need to be especially mindful of your quantities and your headspace, but that's okay. I haven't had any sifting yet, nothing, in any of my test runs at all. So you'll be fine. Okay, the next thing we need to add to the black bean soup is diced tomatoes. I'm using commercially canned diced tomatoes, obviously. Feel free to use your homemade diced tomatoes if that suits you. To me, those are so much work that for something like this where I'm just using a little bit of tomatoes, I tend to lean toward, let's just go ahead and use this. But whatever you want to do is just fine in terms of tomatoes. So I need a 1/4 cup of this, and I am going to try to get it without the juice in this one. We're going to use some juice in the lentil soup, so it'll be good to have a little extra juice in the can for that. But I'm just going to fill it up with some diced tomatoes. Okay. I don't know why. I always have this tendency to go over. I know you shouldn't do that. It's probably why I don't bake terribly well. Okay, there are my tomatoes in that one. Okay, tomatoes in both. Okay, next is corn. I'm going to do a 1/4 cup of corn. Several of you asked me last time what kind of corn I used. Was it fresh, frozen, canned? Well, it's just corn that has been in my freezer for a while. It's a little sad looking, and there's some ice crystals in there. But that's what I've used in all of my soups. It plumps up and it tastes perfect. So this is a good opportunity to use up some corn that maybe you think has seen better days. You can't tell at all in the soup. It tastes perfect. But you can also use, you know, homegrown frozen corn. I wouldn't use previously canned corn. I just think with this long processing time, and it's already been processed, I think that would just be too much for the poor corn. All right, so a 1/4 cup in each of these jars. There's corn everywhere. Oops. Spilled a little bit. All right, we'll do a 1/4 cup of onion in both of those. I think this one has the most ingredients, but they're all super important, all super flavorful. Our next ingredient for the Southwest style black bean soup is roasted red bell pepper. Now, some of you probably make this yourself, and that's fine. Absolutely use it. So this is just one from Sprouts, but I think all the big pickle manufacturers have their version of this. So super quick and easy. If you want to roast peppers yourself, that's fine. If you don't want to mess with the roasting, just use some fresh red bell peppers and dice them up. That'll be fine too. This does add some really nice flavor, so if you have it, use it. And then once you've opened the jar, you have to put it back in the refrigerator, but don't let it go to waste. Use it for pizzas. That's one of my favorite ways to use it. Throw it in spaghetti sauce, throw it in another soup or stew. Blend it into hummus, or even just top the hummus with it. It's really delicious stuff, so don't let it go to waste. Okay, I'm gonna need 1 tablespoon in each of these jars of the roasted red peppers. So they come in strips, so I just cut some into little dices. 1 tablespoon in there. These are really tasty in the soup though, so don't leave them out. Really tasty. All right. Okay, now this couldn't be Southwest style coming out of my kitchen without a little bit of jalapeno, right? So we're gonna do 1 tablespoon of just a diced, I seeded it, chopped it up into tiny little pieces. 1 tablespoon, a hefty tablespoon in each jar. If you do not like heat, I would just leave it out. You could add a little bit of green pepper if you wanted, but I don't think that, I mean, it's so little. I don't think that missing out on the texture or the color, well, you know how I feel about color, so maybe you would miss out on the color, but I think I would just leave it out if I didn't like any heat. No big deal. All right, let's move on to our seasonings for this one. You can see we have plenty of room for broth because those beans are going to expand. So we'll be ready for them. I'm going to use 1/2 teaspoon of garlic in each of these jars. Remember, there is no seasoning in these so far. Nothing has been seasoned. I'm going to use 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper in each of these jars. And then we're going to finish with chipotle powder. Mine is just something I get at the farmer's market. So remember the little chipotles and adobo that we used on the last soup making version? If you have a little jar, little can or whatever of those floating around, that would be fine too, just to add a little bit. I'm just going to add a tiny little bit of the powdered seasonings, just a quarter of a teaspoon. So don't add too much unless you like it really hot. Your soup, you do it your way. But that would be fine. A little bit of smoked paprika would be fine if you don't have chipotle. That's my label, that's not going to tell you anything. Or ancho chili powder. You know, if you don't have any of this and you just want to use, regular chili powder, that's fine too. We're just using a quarter teaspoon. So don't stress out about that. Don't go buy something you're never going to use again just for the half teaspoon in total for this recipe. Don't do that. All right, that is it for that one until we get onto the broth. Okay, onto the Mediterranean style lentil soup. This is the one that surprised me so much because I've never been a lentil fan. This was really delicious. It was really good. So I hope you'll definitely give this one a try as well. We're going to need a quarter cup of lentils in each of these jars. Remember, this is the Progresso Copycat Make It Better version. So they also used chickpeas in there. So I thought that was a fun addition. And I did have chickpeas. I do like chickpeas. Love hummus. So we're going to add a couple tablespoons of chickpeas to this as well. Okay, chickpeas, garbanzo beans, whatever you want to call them. That's what we're using. Where's my tablespoon? So 2 tablespoons of chickpeas in each of these. Again, remember they're going to puff up, so don't go too overboard on your measuring. Okay. All right, we're going to add a tablespoon of roasted red pepper to each of these as well. Again, I've already pre-diced it up. Oh, I'm going to need this. I have a little bit extra. I think we need to use it, don't you? I don't think that little bit of extra is going to cause a problem with the beans. All right. We need spinach in these, so a quarter cup in each. This is about half a cup I have left. I'm just going to divide this up. Okay, perfect. Okay, now this is the one where we're going to use the juice from the diced tomatoes in addition to some diced tomatoes. So I'm just going to get a real juicy one. I need 2 tablespoons of tomatoes with their juice. I do find that commercially canned tomatoes end up with more tomato juice in here than mine do at home. Okay. All right, that one's good. And we're going to move on to, onions. I need a tablespoon of onions in each of those. All right, it's time for the seasonings for these. Super simple. I'm going to do a half teaspoon each of garlic, salt, pepper, and Italian seasoning. Yes, and Italian seasoning. Half a teaspoon. Get rid of this. I don't need it for this. I hope you're not hearing all the construction work that's going on. My neighbors have bulldozers or something in their backyard. I don't know what they're doing. But occasionally they make beeping noises. Occasionally it sounds like they run into the house. I'm not really sure. But it's been getting pretty loud. And it started this morning at like 7:30. They're not supposed to start till 9, I think it is. So I don't know. This soup will also get A little bit thick, but you do not need to thin it out at all. It's absolutely delicious the way it is. Okay, Italian seasoning. And that's it. The rest of that is going to be broth, and the lentils and the chickpeas will swell up to be the perfect amount in that jar. All right, now we're going to move on to David's favorite. How funny is it that after 16 years, I had no idea split pea and ham soup was his favorite. Okay, this last one comes together super quickly. We need 1/3 cup of split peas. Green split peas is what I'm using. Again, do not make it a generous 1/3 cup. Just make it a 1/3 cup. This one gets really thick. And again, that's the way all the recipes turn out. And everybody, including the USDA, if that matters to you, happen to think that's just fine with this. Pretty easy from here. We're going to do 2 tablespoons of carrots, 2 tablespoons of onion, and then we're going to add some ham. You don't have to add the ham. If you'd rather not have the ham, if you want to turn this into a vegetarian soup, that's absolutely fine. Just leave the ham out. I wouldn't add any more lentils. Just fill up what's left with broth. You'll be fine. You know how carrots don't fit in tablespoons really well. Carrots on the floor. All right. Next is 1/4 cup of ham. But let's stop for just a second and talk about ham, because you can get a couple of different results with ham. And ham is one of those things, the US government says you can't can ham with just ham and water. You have to can ham with vegetables and call it soup. I don't know. Again, one of those things. We lost our common sense in there somewhere. But anyway, I've been canning ham forever. But you have 2 choices here. This is a cured ham. This is just a ham that I get from Costco. It comes, you know, kind of, I don't know, do they call it a shrink wrap in the plastic? And I get this and I can it, and I love this. It turns a very dark color. It's very brown. It's very smoky. It's very, I don't know what to tell you. I love it. I absolutely love it. And then you can get a fresh ham, you know, like you get at the holidays, or you can buy some that are uncured. I think Applewood maybe makes an uncured ham. I forget. I have used both in this recipe, and they both turn out fine. I happen to like this texture and flavor better, but unsmoked ham is going to turn out pink, like you would expect ham to be. I do find it can get a little spongy, but in a soup, you're not going to notice. So you pick your ham of choice. Just know that there will be 2 totally different results based on which you choose. 2 totally different flavors, entirely up to you. All right, so my eyes watering. Onions are getting me, even with the lid on. I guess the onions in the jars, my goodness, that's ridiculous. All right, so I am using, this is cured ham that I'm using today. And I just diced it into a bunch of little pieces. So I need a 1/4 cup. Where's my wet 1/4 cup measurement? Here it is. You do want to get most of the fat out of your ham, just because it could cause issues with the sealing. It doesn't have to be completely fat-free. I mean, not that you could actually get ham completely fat-free. 1/4 cup ham. And we'll get these seasonings done. These are super easy as well. I'm going to do a ½ teaspoon each of salt and garlic and a ¼ teaspoon each of pepper and thyme. And then we'll be on to the broths. And then these things go in the canner. And we're just going to sit back and wait for soup. All right, let's do ¼ teaspoon each of pepper. Let's see what that in there. So you noticed in that little clip, or you may have noticed, I don't know what I've cut out, what I haven't, but when I do testing of recipes, they're just all numbered because writing everything on there is just crazy beforehand, right? So I use a used lid. The ones I know were just coming out for taste test, I use a used lid and I just write number 6 or number 8 or number 5. Well, I have so many test batches in my refrigerator in the garage now. David is like, what's number 5? I think it's from the first batch. I'm like, oh no, I have no idea at this point. But he's been enjoying running to the fridge and eating bean soups. Okay, ½ teaspoon of garlic in each of these. I did, I think, 16 different recipes I think we went through. Came up with 7 that I thought were really, really good. 4 of them fit really nicely into this. I don't know if I'll do a number 3 soup sampler. You guys may be tired of doing this, and I don't have a 4th soup right now, but what am I doing? Salt, yes. So ½ teaspoon of salt in here. But anyway, I do have 3 more soups that I think are particularly good for the shelf. I may do them in individual videos. I may do another, maybe a smaller soup sampler. I'm not sure. But anyway, these four, they really go together nicely. It's easy with all the ingredients, so much overlap. It's kind of the perfect batch to do all together. All right, we're on to broth now. Let me get some broth. As I mentioned, I have turkey broth. This is from holidays last year. I made it in January. All right. I do have some fat in this broth, so I'm going to skim off just a little bit. So it's kind of funny on these soups. 2 of them end up being about 1 cup and 1/8 of broth, and 2 of them end up being about 7/8 cup of broth. So, you know, go figure. But basically we're at about 8 cups of broth. And if we do go a little bit over because I wasn't as generous as I am sometimes, and maybe the ham or something like that, I've got plenty. Or water, actually, probably is what I will use to do it. I'm going to pour some broth in here. And I'm just going to use this turkey broth for all of them because that's what I have. It is quite tasty turkey broth. It is not heavily seasoned. So it's not a big salty broth that I'm adding to these. So if you use your own broth or use some from the grocery store and it's heavy on the salt, you know, feel free to cut back a little bit on the seasonings when you add them to the jar. Get all the broth in here to a reasonable level, and then we will debubble very well. And with all these beans on the bottom of the jar, I want to make sure that we have run our special fancy debubbler tool along all of those, because I don't want any beans sticking to the bottom. Ooh, a wide mouth jar is going to be a little harder to pour. I'm going to give everything a generous inch. Doesn't need to go much beyond that. A generous inch is fine. Let's make sure we debubble each of these very thoroughly. Move those beans around on the bottom. down through the center, go along the edge. I haven't had any beans burn on the bottom or anything like that, or get stuck to the bottom of the jar, but I just have visions of that. So I don't even know if that's possible, but I don't want it to happen. So we're just going to stir everything up. Particularly these black beans and the lentils can kind of stick to themselves down below. So just break it up. Okay. Split peas. And they're kind of sticking to themselves as well. Okay, so I'm just going to run all over the bottom here just to make sure there are no peas stuck. I'm really having to break those up. Okay, now let's see who needs to be topped off. Just have some water here to top them off. Okay, now I'm going to be really careful wiping the rims because I have lots of little herbs, have all that broth. And some fatty meat going into a couple of them. So let's make sure that everything is good. I use a little bit of white vinegar on mine. Heard some folks say they've been having issues with white vinegar and lids popping off lately. I have used white vinegar my entire canning life. I've never had that problem. I did, however, the other day have a canning lid pop off. Like 4 or 5 days after I made it. It was some ground turkey I made, I think. And I had already tested the jars, I had already washed them, I'd already labeled them. I was going to take them downstairs, and the lid just fell off. You know, I don't know. It was a ball lid, but I don't think it had anything to do with using vinegar. I think that were just some of the lids for a while. There were not super high quality coming out of Ball. I don't know if they've changed that or not. That was a new batch of jars though, come to think of it. So those were new lids. I don't know. Hard to say it's user error, I think, when the jar is completely sealed. I mean, like run under the sink and wiped off and everything, right? And then 3 days later, it just pops off. All right, I'm gonna put some good lids on these. These get the 4 jars lids. Okay, I have my 4 jars lids. Now, like the soups last time, these are overfilled to be USDA approved soup canning times. So we're not going to follow those soup canning times. We are going to follow the meat processing times, and bean for that matter. So we're going to do 75 minutes on the pints. And if you decide to do these as 4 quarts instead of 8 pints, you do them for 90 minutes in a pressure canner at your appropriate pounds of pressure. I always have that chart linked down below. Where are my lids here? That gives altitude adjustments for both water bath canning and pressure canning. So if you're a new canner and you're just kind of wondering, I know when we were looking for a place to live, when we knew we wanted to live in Atlanta, I'm checking altitudes of everything, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me longer because at land I was 15 pounds of pressure, so I had to add 5 minutes to all my water bathing, and I had to do everything at 15 pounds of pressure. And then we moved to Tennessee, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if Atlanta is this, Tennessee's going to be higher. It was lower. So I'm back down to 10 pounds of pressure, and no time additions on the water bath canning. But I do have to add vinegar to my water here to keep my jars from turning white. So, you know, go figure. It's always something, right? Okay. Put these on until they catch, and then just a smidge further. And that's it. We're going to get these in the canner. Look, isn't that just gorgeous? Everything is pretty going into the canner, I think. Well, I don't know how pretty that is going into the canner. But I'm excited about these. We're going to come back as soon as they're done. I'm going to show you how they look coming out of the canner. You have seen them going into the bowl. You've seen them in the jar. You really need to see them on your pantry shelf. They're really, really tasty, and I'm very pleased to bring them to you today. All right, I'm going to get these in the canner, and I'll see you back here. We'll have cleaned up my mess, and we'll see how they turn out. All right, let's take a look and see what we have. The timer's just gone off. These are done. Lots of steam. No siphoning. Beans did just fine. All right, let's get some of these out. That's a split pea and ham. You can see how thick it is down in there. That's the way it's supposed to be. Ooh, a little water. So there is the Italian sausage and white bean. It looks just delicious, doesn't it? It's a Southwestern black bean with all the corn in there. And the Mediterranean lentil. And that's it. I'm going to get the rest of these out of the canner. Everybody is, oh, looks like I have about 3 left to seal. And then we'll be good to go. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you've enjoyed this. Now I have 2 left to seal. If you enjoyed this and you want to go see the one on beef and chicken, I will link it up above. It was a good one too, and between the two you can have 8 different soups on your shelf. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.